Good morning, ladies. Hey, I want to take some time and go over a little bit on the fasting unit. Weeks 15 through 18, you're going to spend 4 weeks on fasting. I want to go over that a little bit with you as you prepare and get ready to do that. Many of you will do the fast the very beginning of the year, which works really nicely. But I want to talk about some of those things. First of all, I just want to really encourage you to begin praying. What is fasting? What is the purpose? Again, we want to make this process and this growth in our own lives and in the ladies that we're leading. We want that process to have an understanding of the end result. So we start with the end result in mind. And of course, the end result in all of Women of Valor, but specifically in fasting, is that we would hear from God, that we are growing closer to God. I really want you to keep delayed gratification in mind. That's setting aside something that we want, that our flesh wants here and now. That could be food, that may be other things that you choose to fast, but we're setting that aside so that we can receive from God, which will give us a greater return, which will give us what we're looking for. We will see the results of the prayer and fasting time that we do during these 21 days as a later result as well. And so just the point of getting to know God, but at this point in Women of Valor, setting aside our desires and our immediate wants, specifically for food, to have what God has for us. And it also really brings our focus into God, because we think about food, we think about preparing food, we think about what we're going to eat, and even that hunger that we feel will again remind us of our focus and who we're called to get in the presence of. The power of prayer during this is instrumental. There is power in prayer. What happens is when we decide to pray and we decide to focus on a specific thing or subject or God Himself, our relationship with God, we move out distractions and we've chosen to focus on that. That's what prayer does for us. Adding the fasting piece to that makes our focus more intense. And so the whole goal of Women of Valor is growing closer to God, to knowing Him, His character, His plan, to hear His voice more clearly, so that we can walk this faith walk out. The fasting adds to that. It focuses our minds on prayer, and the fasting, because we're putting our flesh aside, because we're hungry, because we're not meeting our flesh needs, we are more focused on God. So that's to keep that in mind as you're sharing with the girls. Ask God to prepare your heart that you're all in. Now I want to encourage you that you're going to spend 4 weeks, and so if you start week 15 with the fast, you're going to teach, then you start the fast the next day. Be sure that you've done a little bit of teaching or you've given some materials ahead of time. The most important thing will be the fasting book. If you're doing the Daniel Fast for Spiritual Breakthrough by Elmer Towns, there's an introduction in that. You want to give the women the books early enough that they can read the introduction, because when you start the fast, they should be past the introduction, have a fairly good understanding of fasting, and then they're going to start day 1 in that book, the first day of your fast, and it's a reading and a devotion every day. So there will not be curriculum writing during that time. You're going to use that fasting book. They will read a devotion and have questions every single day on that. They will continue their Bible reading, and I would really encourage them to still continue to do 2 soaps a week. Some of them during this time will have more time to spend in the Word because they're not eating or they're giving up certain meals, and so they could maybe have time to soap even more. The goal in this is to hear God's voice clearer than ever before, because you're giving up food, you're fasting. God is faithful. He tells us that there's power in prayer and fasting, and they'll be pointed to those scriptures in the curriculum as well. So you want to have them have the introductory. Week 15, you're going to do the introduction, and in that I would be sure that you read page 41 in your leader's guide. It gives you an overview of week 15 through 18, what that looks like. In your curriculum book on page 57, it goes over a fasting timeline. And then in your timed outline, it goes over each week that you can specifically do that way if you would like. All right, so in the curriculum, I first want to tell you that there is in there what you need to do is at week 15, you need to give some introduction to the fasting. And it goes over what you should expect, tips to help you get prepared for that. a few cautions that they should be aware of, and then it will have on page 59, this is very important, on 59 it will give an overview that they need to do before they start the fast. It will get to prepare them and have an expectation, and they'll know what they're expecting. It asks for their goals. It asks for what they're vowing to fast. Some of them may be able to diligently do the Daniel fast, which truly is just giving up choice foods. That's all we know positively in the Word. We encourage things like giving up sugars and breads and meats, processed foods, sticking to whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans. And so steering away from animal foods and going to plant foods is really the goal, is what the Daniel fast is, as far as foods that they can eat. But it will ask them what they're vowing. Some of them will choose to give up Facebook during this time. Again, if your goal is focusing on God, what are some things that maybe are distracting in your life that hinder you from going all in? They're going to put a starting date. They're going to put an ending date so they're clear. When are they going to spend time in God's Word? What scripture are they standing on? And then one of the things we really encourage them to do is find a prayer partner, someone maybe in their small group or someone in the Women of Valor group, maybe somebody in the church who's also fasting, that they can begin praying together with. They see the results of God they can share with that person. That person can partner with them, go to the cross of Jesus together and pray with them. That also will help them keep their focus on prayer. Right? So that's what's in the curriculum. I also want to encourage you, going back to the Leader's Guide, that it gives you some specifics. That first week, you want to explain to them what the Daniel fast is, what the purpose is. Again, focus is not food. Let me say that one more time. Focus is not food. Often when we are fasting, the focus becomes a diet and food. I want to strongly encourage you, don't let yourself go there. Do not let them go there. There are some recipes in the back of the Leader's Guide, but it's not because we spend hours and hours preparing food and shopping for food. It's okay to be hungry. Obviously, some of the women will have some health issues, and they obviously have to do what they need to do, but they're giving up choice foods. If fast food is their thing, they're going to give that up. There's things that are choice foods for them. Sugar is an issue. Give up sugar. They want to do as much as they can, sticking together and all doing the same thing, but we know that that's not totally feasible. There will be some women who need to tweak the plan a little bit, but the goal is giving up things to be hungry sometimes and to really concentrate on when they are hungry or when they give up that meal, to really spend that time in prayer. So the first week you're going to go over that in your Leader's Guide. On page 59, it talks about the come to the table activity. It gives you scriptures for that. We'll go over that in just a minute. That's going to be the first night. It gives some pictures, and it gives food for the fast. And so the first week, the introduction, and then you also want to have time to do the come to the table. And so that piece is explained in the Leader's Guide very well, but you're coming to the table to have communion and feasting together, to concentrate and think about, God, you've prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. In a time of prayer, position our heart to receive from God during this 21-day fast. So that will be week 15. You'll take communion together. There's instructions how to set up the table. There's some pictures of table in the time outline. Be sure that you kick off the fast with a time of prayer to help the women position their hearts. Then the second week, week 16, I would encourage you to come back together, give them time in their small groups, pray together, answer questions that needed to be answered. Again, refocusing, why are we doing this fast? It's not about the food. It's about the focus on God. Maybe some praise reports at that time, maybe just some encouragements and struggling at that time. Then week 17, you're going to have a time of prayer. Remember, they're doing the devotion every single day, so they can come back together in their small groups. You can share as a large group if you want, but in their small groups, soaps, prayer time, devotion times, what God's showing them in their fast. And then week 18, you're going to end the fast when you come together, and you're going to have time of sharing and testimony of what God's doing in the fast. You might want to have some extra prayer times during this time. Encourage them again. Partner up and pray together. God's going to move during this time. He is faithful to do that as we position our hearts. Leaders, you lead out in this. It's just as hard for us as it is for them, but that our focus would not be on the food, but yet we've chosen to give up food, which is very important to us, to focus on God. Don't hesitate to call me if you have questions. Text me, email me, but I'm praying for you during your fasting unit. This is going to be a powerful time as you end forgiveness and you go into fasting. There's 2 memory verses during the week. One of them is on forgiveness. Be sure and have the women be memorizing, doing all the same things, except for within their curriculum there will not be questions. They'll be doing the Elmer Towns book. So I'm so excited. Can't wait to hear about your fast.